Welcome to the TNC Random Fandom podcast. We are here to have fun and talk all things pop culture, collecting, and nerd culture in general. Make sure you join the conversation during our live stream with our most excellent hosts, Craig Borden and Tommy Mach. Let the shenanigans begin.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the most randomest of random fandom podcasts that you will find. I am your host, Craig Borden. With me, as always, Tommy Mach. How the heck are you doing, my friend?
Hey, let's go, Buffalo.
Yeah, totally getting you on that one. That was a fun game. Started off a little rough, though. I was a little like, oh, God, Bo Nix is going to come out and just destroy us, isn't he? But no, he turned into back into a pumpkin, and Broncos go back to Denver for the time being.
Hey, all I can say is that it seems like the Bills do that to you. They start out, slow. It's almost as if they kind of like want to look like they're feeling out the other team for a little bit, usually for like the first half, and then they go and start playing football again. So I'm going to be very nervous next week when we play the Ravens.
Yes.
So
that is going to be, but at least the saving grace is it is in Buffalo, where we are still undefeated at home this season after today, too. But you mentioned the slow start thing, Tommy. As a lifelong Buffalo Bills fan, the only thing I know is how to look on the not bright side of things and expect the awful to happen. So I just think it's hilarious that after all the four falls and everything in the Super Bowl, which is a great documentary if you haven't watched that one on 30 for 30 for ESPN as a fan, I just think it's totally ironic now that this Buffalo Bills team is latched onto the Killer's Mr. Brightside song, and you see the players all singing it on the sidelines and everything like that. It is completely wild that that's become the normal thing, along with obviously shout has become the obvious one for a million years. So, as you mentioned,
the one thing I will say though, and not to get too much into football, because we obviously can talk football, and this is not just a sports podcast, even though we have not touched sports yet. Right. But I would have to say is that when you see Josh Allen smiling on the sidelines and smiling after a play, I'm going to tell you this right now. I'm pretty sure Josh Allen is going to win this game for us. If he's smiling, it's going the right way.
Yeah, he's having a good time. Usually you got to watch out, I think, if you're the opposing team, because when he gets frustrated, even to that point is when he just seems like he takes everything in his own hands. But anyways, Tonight, Tommy, we're going to be talking about all sorts of random stuff and apparently football for a minute. But tonight we wanted to talk about some of the things that we missed in recent episodes. I'm not talking like, Greedo shot first level retcons here, but we're going to talk some random things tonight, and it might just be some random questions that we've had over time in the midst of having all the fans and whatnot message us on social media and everything. We wait and see many of you come and join us live on Sunday nights at 7:00 Eastern. Make sure you hit those subscribe buttons wherever you happen to be listening for, so you make sure you tune in when we are having our live stream, because we want to hear from you. So, but tonight, Tommy, like I said, you and I are going to just trade back and forth, ask each other questions, and bring up topics, and we're going to talk about them for a few minutes. So is there something that you would have in mind that you'd like to get the ball rolling with this evening, my friend?
So, yes, there's a couple of things. So when I was doing, or I should say, when we were coming up with topics and everything, we really didn't, I should say we've done our research, but at the same time, when you're kind of live and you're doing this, things kind of get, pushed to the side or just completely, missed because, you're coming off the top of your head and you're giving all the reactions that you want. So the first one I would have to say is our episode that we did on fictional characters or live characters, and I had mentioned Mr. Rogers. I had made the mistake of saying that the character that I was talking about was the mailman, which it wasn't the mailman. Mr. McFeely was the mailman. Officer Clemens was the African-American gentleman that I was referring to when he was when he came and was invited to soak his feet with Mr. Rogers in the little kiddie pool. So after the episode aired and I was sitting there and I was thinking about it and I was like, crap, I got it wrong. And I can understand how people on radio, when they're, just flying, everything is kind of ad-libbed and you're trying to remember things on the fly. So you're not getting any dead air. And I completely dropped the ball. So I was referring to Officer Clemens, not Mr. McFeely, the mailman. So that's one thing that I was talking about.
But you got the name wrong. But like I said, you got the story right. So there's the big difference. Names can be quickly changed. But to that point, well played. So what was the second thing you had on your mind, sir?
So this was something, and you and I are going to talk about this for, I'm going to say probably briefly. One of our very first episodes was about those about to rock. We salute you. And again, 80s heavy metal, 80s rock and roll is a very big topic. And I think it was after that episode is when we actually decided we need to be very specific with the topics that we talk about. So, because it was brought to my attention by my beautiful and lovely wife that we did not mention a single female artist within the vast, category of heavy metal and rock and roll. And I felt, oh God, we need to right that wrong. So
which we will with a whole episode at some point, but we're going to touch on it right here because there's a vast piece of that whole thing, new and old, I want to get to, because it has honestly, and Tommy, recently it's shifted a lot in heavy metal music to where it's obviously closer, I say, to 50-50, especially the bands that have gotten popular, whether they're male or female led anyways. But go ahead, I digress.
So off the top of my head, a band that has had a recent resurgence, but was known in the 70s, throughout the 80s. They are sisters. And, I'm just going to say Ann and Nancy Wilson of Heart. Ann Wilson has the vocal range of a goddess, if you will.
Yeah.
And Nancy is a guitar virtuoso in her own right. So I will throw out the first pitch with that topic and say the Heart Sisters, Heart, by far one of the best bands to come out of the 70s into the 80s. And then throughout, I mean, when you can bring a tear to the eye of Robert Plant, when you're singing a Led Zeppelin song, you have lightning in a bottle. You have a voice from hell. And
which song did they cover for that? I can't remember.
They've done a few songs. They've done so when they were doing the Kennedy Honors, I forget what song it was.
Is it?
But they've done Battle for Evermore. They've done now it's off the top of my head.
Is it Ramble On that they did? That sounds familiar. But anyway.
Maybe.
But anyway.
Yeah, but fantastic. But what about you? What band do you or female artists, rock and roll or otherwise, do you think that we should have in that very first episode thrown out there?
I think we had to nail this one because in the midst of this whole thing, this just covers, like, I'll say what ended up becoming the 80s in rock and for women anyways, and that's the Runaways. With Lita Ford, Joan Jett, whole band turned into stars in other bands or solo acts themselves. And holy shnikes, Cherry Bomb is just one of those songs that you just get riffing on and you don't miss it. It's that simple. Another one that we didn't talk about was Pat Benatar. Would have been a giant monster 80s one.
Yes. Speaking of which, so I'll throw this out there. When it comes to, say, Joan Jett, and a pioneer in punk rock herself. Is there a song that you come to think of that you're like, yeah, that's my Joan Jett go-to every time? I don't turn the radio station when she's on.
You got to go with like I would think I would go with "Hit Me with Your Best Shot" or oh no, that's actually take that in the back. That's Pat Benatar, correct? I'm getting mixed up.
That's it.
Yeah. What the hell is on my? I'm missing this one now. You put me on the spot. I had it right on the tip of my finger, but I love rock. And roll.
Rock and roll.
Miss that one. But
I always like Bad Reputation.
Asian is that was the one I was thinking of in my head. And I'm like, Ronda Rousey used it in the WWE and it was perfect. So that was her entrance music coming out to Joan Jett. But funny enough, I actually got to see Joan Jett probably about 2015, 2016 in the weirdest of things. They had an 80s night at the Tampa Bay Rays ball game, and they happened to be playing the Blue Jays when I was there in Tampa. And it was 80s night, and Joan Jett played after the game. So at about
nice.
9:30, Joan Jett and the Blackhearts came out and had a great freaking set right there on the field. It's fun times.
Yeah, we saw Joan Jett. Obviously, it was the Motley Crue Def Leppard co-lining tour. Joan Jett, Poison. Yeah, it was great show. And again, she's still out there. She's whooping it on with the best of them, And more power to her. More power to her.
Yep, and I got to give Lita Ford here the lip service here piece at least. And I always love the "Kiss Me Deadly" song, and then also she was that badass that she did a duet with Ozzy. That is, I'd say, probably one of the best duets of the '80s, and that is "Close My Eyes Forever," which is just an amazing song to begin with. And then the fact that she's powerful enough to be right then there back and forth with Ozzy. Mm-hmm. Can't say much different than that.
So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that song was remade by David Draymond of Disturbed under his solo artist, his solo thing, which was called Device. And do you know who the female singer was that did it with him?
Well, I'm guessing it was Lita. Was it Lizzie Hale?
Lizzie Hale from Hailstorm.
It was. Okay. As I say, I heard this one. That was actually a really good cover too. Mm-hmm. When his song was already that metaled out, I didn't think you could go that much more metal, and they did a decent job with it. I appreciated it, and I remembered the other song that I was trying to think of when I was with Joan Jett is "I Hate Myself for Loving You," because that song rocks. Speaking of somebody that covered a good version of that too, Lizzie Hale.
Well, I also we mentioned Billy Idol, but I think "Kiss Me Deadly" is a Billy Idol song, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe it might be, or he covered it with her. Maybe was one of the other things too. So, but either way, rocking.
so circling back real quick with Heart. Ann Wilson did a duet song with David Draymond of Disturbed on the latest Disturbed album, I believe it is. And it's called "Don't Tell Me." If you have not heard that song, I guarantee you, listen to it.
Writing that down now.
It's called "Don't Tell Me." It's Disturbed with Ann Wilson, and her again. She has not missed a beat, and I'm not pointing out anything, but the woman, I believe, is in her 70s, and she is still belting it out like it's. And those of you who don't know, Heart will be in Buffalo, I believe, in March. So I may be going to that one. One of the reasons why we went to the Def Leppard concert in Cleveland was the fact that was one of the stops that Heart was going to be at, but they had to cancel because Anne had a procedure done because she was diagnosed with cancer, I believe. So, but she seems to be back doing well and getting back to it, and can't wait to actually witness the musical sound that is Heart. But
I do
tell us another one,
because, like I said, you mentioned Ann Wilson. I just want to give Nancy Wilson her chance here to have her shine, because she was one of the most underrated guitar players, I think, in, I'll just say, history, because she is damn good. And you only need to listen to that song Barracuda with the ridiculous intro and then one of the best guitar riffs in history, or go crazy on you for that matter, because those two guitar riffs and those songs should be on every guitar player's classics list to just play because they're wild. So just saying.
So again, this is one of those topics that we can talk all day long about one artist alone. So with that being said, just to for the sake of the show of this week, we will make sure that we circle back and we just give the women the credit that they are due when it comes to rock and roll music, and just music in general and what they have brought to the table. Because again, without bands like Heart and the Runaways and Joan Jett and Lita Ford and going into the future with Hailstorm and The Warning and all these other bands that are out there, they definitely have broken that glass ceiling. They have proven that rock and roll music is not just a man's sport.
No, and in some cases, like I said, they've even been taking over to the point where they're making the men look like they need to hurry up and catch up on certain cases.
Yep. Especially when you got women now that can sing beautiful harmonies, but can also give you that guttural scream like some of these, Cookie Monster stuff,
So I'll give you this story because this is just a good one that I think our fans will appreciate. My wife and I found Hailstorm about the same time, listening to our music on, Spotify, YouTube Music, all that kind of stuff. But we found them in completely contrasting ways. So I'm, like you, I traveled for my living, and I was probably cruising around the desert somewhere with everybody in El Paso or whatever it was for work. And this cover of Ride the Lightning came on the Spotify or whatever I was listening to. And I'm like, who in the is this? Because it was just, I couldn't, it blew my mind. And it was Hailstorm for one of their albums, was a all covers album. They kind of did that in between their old and their main album releases. And it was phenomenal. I couldn't believe the level of just good. And then taking an already amazing song to a whole nother level, and it blew my mind. And then my wife found them and through a whole nother song that was what was it called? Anyways, more mellow power ballad version of the song, and we both came to each other when we got back home, like, "Hey, have you listened to this?" And we
was it Dan? Here's to us. Okay,
it was that song.
But no, I think they have two albums that are just purely covers, and they do one of Skid Row's "Slave to the Grind," hands down better than the original. I'm saying it right now, so, better than the original.
I have the same. I think it was their other one, but they did a cover of Guns N' Roses, "Out to Get Me." And it was one of those stupid little subtle things that I'm like, how did Slash and all those guys not think of this? And it's just that part where they're, you hear Axl yell out, "They're out to get me," and then you just hear the guitar riff in the background. The Hailstorm version has them going, "What?" in the back, and it's just the littlest touch, but it took it to 11 instead of it being right where it was. And I was like, oh, perfect. So
snatch and improve. Yeah. Okay. All right. Pick another category. Let's do this.
I had to have one that I couldn't believe in the midst of us having such a great talk about Robin Williams during our Icon episode that we actually missed the movie that got him an Oscar, and that was Dead Poets Society. We didn't talk about it at all. We missed it.
Captain.
Exactly. So I just want to make sure we got that one in there and say, hey, that was, if you haven't had a chance and you're a big Robin Williams fan, or you got into it from listening to us that one evening, youngsters, that is the movie that was tipping him over that crazy level of the insanity thing you think of when you think of with Robin Williams, to him being a solidified great actor, not just the comedic, wonderful, goon that we love. But and then Tommy, you actually stumbled onto a recent story that was a little odd, that it wouldn't have been, I guess, headlines about the Batman thing?
Yes, that he was actually up for the part of the Joker before Jack Nicholson, and so I had to anything that we have anything that we've ever had a topic on and stuff like that. For some reason, the algorithm comes up on Instagram, and all of a sudden it's like we got all these different things, and I keep shooting them to you. I'm like, here. In case we have to do a circle back, here we go.
or God forbid, we just have fun and goof around and have whole other episodes of things. We'll do another Icon episode probably in a month or so. But to that point, I just couldn't believe that they, the level of that story that was told in that clip was the fact that they basically used Robin Williams to say, Jack Nicholson, get your shit over here because we're getting this to Robin Williams if you don't accept it. And after that, I could see why Robin Williams told Warner Brothers, here's the finger, I'm never working with you. But in the midst of that, as we were just discussing, he got to do Dead Poet Society, and that got him his Oscar and a slew of amazing movies after that. So I guess that's
can you imagine? But can you imagine what that movie would have turned into if the man, the myth, the legend of Robin Williams was playing the iconic Joker? Not taking nothing away from Jack Nicholson, because
correct.
By far one of the best portrayals of Joker in the whole mythos, if you will.
Yep. And what took it to that whole level of creepy, I don't know if it would have came off that dark, but I feel like it would be Tim Burton directing it and everything. I think the product would have came out eerily similar, but maybe he would have been a little bit more manic with Robert Williams actually doing it, because of the fact that he does just
he's all over the place.
But then again, I don't know if that would have been the best role for him anyways, as far as mentally, you know what I mean? That Jack Nicholson warned even Heath Ledger about the role when he took it. It's like, hey, this is a fucked up guy you're getting into the head of. Don't go too deep, you know what I mean? And I'm sorry I'm cursing if there's any youngsters out there, but it's kind of how Mr. Jack Nicholson had to say it. But on that note, that's all I got for that one, Tommy. And honestly, I don't have a ton of monster retcons here that we wanted to talk about here before we just dive into some what I'll call the random fandom lists that we've been getting slowly gathering from friends of the show, guests, people that have messaged us on Instagram and whatnot. And thank you.
So I will say this though,
seeing the Instagram perfectly in our platform here, but I do have it on the screen over here, so I am watching it. So if you're on Instagram and or anything, make sure you hit us up with a topic if you want us to chit chat on it this evening.
So before we move over, I will say this: out of all of our episodes, I could definitely tell that the Robin Williams icon episode that we did definitely hit a spot with you, because I can hear it in your voice, I can see it in your face that it actually meant something to you. And I got to say that if people were watching, and you can go back and you can watch it, you can actually see that you hit Craig right in all the feels, if you will. So
it's the kind of guy you all saw. I grew up with watching him, you know, the what was a horrific ending for everybody involved with him and everything like that, because it doesn't sound. I've since then looked into a lot more about how he passed, what happened, how it happened, and apparently his third wife has been actually pushing this very hard. There's a very specific type of basically brain cancer, and it's lumibody dementia is what it was called. And in the midst of that, it actually basically means you're not you. You're literally not even split personalities. You become a whole nother person in the pieces of what this horrible disease can do to people. And that has made it even that much more horrific for somebody like me that, like I said, you saw what his brain could do throughout his whole career, Tommy. And it was a genius level. And to see it turn around and literally bite him in the ass like that and more or less cause his demise, that was what pulled at me. So, but to that point, that was also my first big celebrity from my childhood, everybody I grew up with that I unfortunately was really attached to and lost. The only other one that I can say that much, and this was a giant peak and a very quick, he was gone, It was Chris Farley.
Right.
I was in middle school when I was really getting attached to him as a character, and then unfortunately, like I said, same unfortunate thing with him and John Belushi, same idea.
Mm-hmm.
So, it is what it is.
So and you mentioned it too, is that we will be doing more icon episodes, and I wouldn't be surprised if we decided that we would do a Chris Farley, because obviously I'm a huge Chris Farley fan. But also like Jim Carrey, and just icons
and all these other people like that we talked about. It might not be just those kind of things. We could have easily moved the Monty Python into that avenue.
John Cleese.
That's what we want to do with the icons level. It's going to be a pop culture person or a pop culture phenomenon that we're going to induct into our own little TNC Random Fandom Hall of Fame kind of thing is what we're calling our icon series. So on that note, I think that's well played there, sir. So was there any other topics that you want to talk about before we get into the second part of the half hour here, which is some of the random stupid stuff that I got?
I am quite sure that there are other things out there, because I have gone through some of the old episodes to kind of look at some of the things that we could talk about. But honestly, I would like to say to our very first two guests that we had, to Gene McGee and to Kate Schmidt, thank you so much for being our first two guests. Wonderful. And we plan on having more. Oops. Yeah, where'd you go?
I hit buttons by accident.
Stop doing that.
Just want to mess with you. Don't worry about
it. But we plan on having more guests. As a matter of fact, and we'll probably talk about this at the end, but we have guests coming on next week and the following week, and we'll talk about those episodes coming up at the end of this episode. So with that being said, go ahead and give us a random topic.
All right, so things like I'm shocked that you and I didn't interview each other for and things like that. As some of these things that were on this list, we've gotten, like I said, some things from fans, some things that people asked us even when we were at the convention. I was like, you know what? That's not so bad. And if you haven't had a chance to check out Tommy's emceeing/hosting duties, make sure you check out our Instagram, because there is a whole wonderful episode there of Tommy hosting the cosplay contest at the Rochester Anime Convention a couple of weeks ago. So check it out. It's fun times. So one of them was, Tommy, I don't think you and I have ever talked about our favorite TV shows. So do you have a top three, I guess, would be where we would like to go to, maybe. If you would like, I can get the ball rolling.
Yeah, go ahead. Because here's the question. You have to be specific. Is it TV now, or is it TV like throughout our lifetime?
Your TV watching experience, top three.
God. Okay, well.
So, like I said, I'll give you one here, and like I said, maybe it's just easy enough to go back and forth. I cannot say enough good things of what The Simpsons have done to my humor level for my own comedic purposes over the years, because I'm just going to say it, The Simpsons did it. Just spoof on South Park. So no matter what I goof around, you goofed around, probably came from a joke that you and I might have even not even known about on The Simpsons, because that's exactly what it's been. It's been on TV for infinity. It's going to be on TV apparently for infinity, even though they faked us all out with this is the last episode a few weeks ago. I still got to watch that one because I heard it was hilarious. And I heard that Conan O'Brien actually came back to help write that one. So I thought that was very interesting. But you talk about a comedic who's who of celebrities and everything. I think the Simpsons there is one of those ones that, in my experience, it's been there my whole life. It's that simple.
I agree with you, but I actually kind of fell off the Simpson train after a while. It was one of those things that I kind of grew up with it. It started out on the Tracy Ullman show as a little, 30-second, 2-minute, little snippet. And then it just kind of manifested it or morphed into this own TV show that's still going to this day. But I kind of did fall off the Simpson train quite a while ago. So every once in a while I'll catch it on Disney Plus, where they, and watch the Treehouse of Horror episodes and stuff like that.
It's always a classic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
TV will here make Homer something.
but I have to say, I do love the fact that every time something big happens in real life, so to speak, they always were able to say, "Oh, the Simpsons predicted this back 20 years ago." It's like, oh, okay, well, they predicted Donald Trump was
shit.
so it's
God.
like, well, what did the Simpsons figure out this time? But
exactly it.
But they even said, like, even the dress or the clothes that Lisa was wearing in that episode were the same clothes that Kamala was wearing or something like that. I was like,
yeah, I saw that. That was amazing, and to that point. But yeah, like I said, that one could be a whole episode on its own with stupid quotes and fun too. But so, did I get the creative mind going here a little bit? Do you have one that you would like to throw out there?
So with that being said, one of my favorite shows when I was younger, when I was a kid, I would have to say, geez, I could choose a whole bunch of different ones because they were just, to me, they were like boys shows. So I will start out with the A-Team. Loved the A-Team, and the beautiful thing about the A-Team
doesn't like the A-Team.
the beautiful thing about the A-Team is they almost every episode they would fire like 1 billion rounds, and then they would blow up a bunch of things, and nobody got killed. It was like
everything, right?
It was like G.I. Joe. It's like nobody dies in G.I. Joe. They blow up a plane and like they parachute out.
Bounces off of them, and it's like they fall over. And
but I'll put in a very close second, and you'll probably agree with me or not. The Knight Rider. Loved the Knight Rider. I wanted a kit. I had a kit, big wheel.
Yeah, I remember those were awesome. But to that point, you even goofed around and sent me the kit Transformer the other day on our Instagram chat and whatnot. It's like, okay, well, that's how kind of a big cultural impact they hit, that the car itself, not just David Hasselhoff, in that whole show, was that it's 2025 and you have a toy coming out that's going to have Kit as a Transformer on it. It's okay, that's the kind of palpable punch you had back then.
But that's even a good show idea, is iconic vehicles. Like, so you got the Blues Brothers mobile, the Bluesmobile, you have Ecto-1, you have the Mirthmobile, and then you got you have the A-Team van, Kit, and even Carr, who was the evil Kit. Right. So we could do an episode on iconic vehicles from movies and television, and like Starsky and Hutch, the Gran Torino from Starsky and Hutch. Who didn't want that?
I still want that. Somebody had one of those that it wasn't painted the same, but there was a blue version with that same white, like kind of like check mark that goes down from the windows. They had that at the car show down the street here last summer.
Oh, really?
Like, oh. Yeah, it was really cool looking in blue. I was surprised because everybody buys it in red because of that Starsky and Hutch show. So, but yeah, okay. My number two.
Go ahead.
My number two, I'm going to get into a little bit more modern here, and you'll see that I obviously watched way too much of the FX channel in the last 20 years. One of my favorite shows recently was Rescue Me with Dennis Leary. It was him in the firehouse with a bunch of goofballs, and it had a really nice balance of drama, comedy, and action into it. And it just sucked me right in. It was, post 9/11, firefighters trying to deal with their problems, but then the horrible pranks they played on each other in the firehouse and all that kind of stuff too was there. So it was a really fun show. I really liked. That was one of the first shows post college that I was like, I'm watching this every week. And it kind of happened, and it kept going and going and going. And I want to say they did 8 seasons of torturing Dennis Leary's character, Tommy Gavin. And I think he said he had to hang it up as he couldn't torture him anymore. So I don't know. So what's do you remember that one at all? Or
I do remember that one. And that was post, Dennis Leary like quitting smoking and everything. And he actually had quite a bit of a career after his stand-up. I mean, he used to be the asshole guy, and
yeah. And the funny thing is, there was some elements in that show that were clearly pulled from his stand-up or his life period, because he always, it's an Irish family he's from, and he made in the No Cure for Cancer stand-up special where you were talking about there, the asshole song that he's known for. Mm-hmm. He made a bit about he goes, my family's so Irish that my dad was putting up new wood paneling over the old wood paneling in the house. And there was a bit where his dad in that show was starting to go off the dementia end a little bit, and no kidding, was putting wood paneling up over the old wood paneling. He goes, oh, it just needs a whatever, needs a fresh coat. So it was fun though. But so then my last one was another FX show, and this shows my sportsness still a little bit too. There was this show called The League that had Nick Kroll and a bunch of these other guys in it that was on FX, and it was all about these idiots in their fantasy football league and how bad they treated each other. You've seen all 6 of the people that are the main characters on Pick a Comedy Show in the last 5 so years, and Nick Kroll has obviously become a very big comedian and does good stand-up. He's been in a bunch of movies, those kind of things. But I just from the first episode, I was just like hooked. And it's one of those things like at the end of fantasy football season, I just watch over and over again anyways, because this is stupid and it has some nice episodes to it. But the first episode got me hooked because they were having their draft and they were just goofing around in the one guy's apartment. And the guy is all of a sudden like super rich. Like he's a plastic surgeon, does noses and all these kind of things, has crazy doctor money, right? For some reason, he kept the roach from them smoking in high school. And he framed it, puts it on the wall, and they're like, what the hell is this? This is some really shitty art. And they're like, and he goes, no, that's our first joint that we smoked back in high school. And he goes, you kept that for all these years? And then they all start laughing, and they're like, yeah, it's so funny. And he goes, no, it's not funny because of why you think it is. And he goes, well, it's because we got so high. No, they tricked him into thinking it was marijuana, and they actually wrapped their pubes in it. And
oh,
horrible. But just who thinks of that?
Well, ladies and gentlemen,
story or something stupid. It was that level of crazy, over the top comedy that I like. So I guess it was just in that ballpark.
Ladies and gentlemen, the first reference to pubes by TNC Random Fandom.
Game on. So do you have a third one that you want to rifle out before we move on?
So I would have to say Friends. It's self-explanatory. We talked about that our very first episode. A lot of memories there. But as far as a number one show,
just to be this person, you cannot be helping your friends move anymore without yelling.
Yeah,
it's just
exactly.
A whole generation of people.
But you may remember this, but there was a network, and it tried to make a comeback not too long ago, but it for some reason it petered out again. But in the early 2000s, there was a network called G4. And one of my favorite shows on G4 was called Attack of the Show. And it's basically this podcast is basically Attack of the Show, just without a budget.
Correct. Maybe someday, but not now.
Maybe someday. But I love Attack of the Show. I mean, Olivia Munn was on Attack of the Show. That's where she got her start. Yep. And it had a lot of irrelevant sketches and stuff like that. A lot of stupid things that they would do. but it was still fun because it gave you all of that nerdy stuff that you wanted to know about video games and stuff. They would always go to
movies,
those
everything.
Right. They would always go to those what's it called? E3, where they do all of the video game show, where they show off all the new latest video games. It's almost kind of like the Disney 23 or whatever they do, so
or people that go to like
wasn't great.
electronic shows and stuff like that. Yep. Totally gotcha.
Yeah. And it was a great show, and it was just like a bunch of stupid, silly, goofy things, and people talked, and it was like a lot of sarcasm in it, but it was a great show. And I still to this day follow some of the people that were on that show. They don't really have much going on at this point.
Was with Oliver Munn, right? And he was really cool too. Same thing. There was a spin-off of one of their sketches that they did on that I ended up really liking into a real show for a little bit too. They did all those bits where it was like the 8-bit cartoons and stuff like that. It would just be done in a very old NES look to it. But it spawned off into another TV show called Code Monkeys that was about in that same ballpark of humor, what I was just mentioning with the lead. So it was very fun though, but that was a great network. I wish they would bring something like that back.
They you know what they do. They do, and they did bring it back, but there was a lot of internal stuff that was going on that was just bringing the network down again. And they tried bringing it back, but I mean, American Ninja Warrior really, the popularity of that started on G4. And then eventually it manifested over to ABC, and now we see American Ninja Warrior, and it's becoming a global phenomenon, so.
Correct me if I'm wrong, before they had American Ninja Warrior on G4, didn't they used to play old reruns of MXC?
Yes.
If anybody isn't aware of what that show is, you're missing out, serious. MXC, or Most Extreme Elimination Challenge, is a Japanese game show that they overdubbed on, but it was like 80s Japanese game show that they just put new audio and everything on, and they had did stupid silly names for all the guys. Like the one guy that was their on the field correspondent was named Guy Ledouche. So
and Kenny Blankenship.
Kenny Blankenship. So it was fun times though, but it was just basically the old like if you saw that old Saturday Night Live with Chris Farley on the Japanese game show, they were basically torturing him. It's all these people running, and it's like they get hit by a giant foam ball like in Indiana Jones, or they just are trying to jump from place to place over a pit of water, and this big spinning thing comes around and nails them and knocks them over, and I go with the creepy weird dub overtaking stuff.
It's pretty much the originator of what we have on the USA Network, which is Wipeout. Correct. Wipeout there would not be a Wipeout if it wasn't for MXC.
I kind of like MXC better.
So much better for the overdubs.
It doesn't have the comic value.
Exactly.
All right. So on the other notes, another topic that we could spend a whole another show on would be, if you were in a time travel movie, what would you not do? Or what would you do? So you're gonna go full butterfly effect. You're gonna get your sports almanac and do what you need to do, Tommy. What thing would be something that would be maybe on your to-do or not to-do list?
Well, obviously, I would
pass out.
I obviously would make it to where I was going to be filthy, stinking rich. Like I'd be the inventor of Google, or something like that. I mean,
so you're going full hot tub time machine.
I am going to be the lead singer of Motley Crue. I am going to be
Motley Mach.
Mockley Crew.
That is one of I love the first Hot Tub Time Machine. That is 100% one of my guilty pleasure movies. If I'm not in a good mood, it was one of the ones I used to watch. It was also one of the ones that never left my tablet when we were traveling from airport to airport to airport with our traveling days at work. And it was fun. But to that point, I love how they started off trying not to screw around with the timeline, and then they completely just obliterated that idea.
Yeah. It's
Then
like,
you get Motley
but
Lou
no,
and Lugal.
but how could you not want to, if you went back in time with the knowledge that you have of, why not right the wrongs? Why not, at least change your own, change your own stars, if you will. Why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you go back and say,
save Sarah Connor too? Just saying.
I would go back and I would, maybe not associate with some people that did me wrong, knowing that, and how would I change things that for that benefit me? But of course you would. I mean, there's, you know what, you step on a butterfly and the T-Rex still lives to this day. I don't know. Who knows?
So on that note, favorite time travel movie?
Okay, I'm not even gonna go there. I'm not even gonna go there because you're gonna automatically, everybody's gonna be like, well, he's just gonna say Back to the Future. You know what? I'm gonna take away Back to the Future. I will take away Back to the Future, and I will say the remake of the H.G. Wells Time Machine, the remake. That came out in the mid 2000s, I believe it was.
As I say, mid 2000s, late 90s, something like that. Can't remember.
Yeah,
No, that was actually a pretty good movie.
Mm-hmm.
So, just to, like you said, for the sake of being different and everything, I've always loved the Terminator movies, and that is 100%. They fucked with that timeline so bad. I don't even think any of them know what the hell's going on anymore.
Exactly, and believe it or not, people may not actually associate that as a time travel movie, but it ultimately it is. They send Terminators back in time to kill off the resistance leader, and
John Connor wouldn't have been born if Kyle Reese didn't go back in time.
And impregnate his mom.
You're my dad. I made my dad. He sent him back.
That's not true. That's impossible.
Search your feelings. Can't do it, James Earl Jones. I apologize.
Search your feelings, John. You know it to be true.
Exactly. So one of the other ones that we were, like I said, there's a bunch of them on this list that I know we could use full pieces of show for, if not whole shows themselves. But let's talk superheroes, which is something we haven't talked about yet. So the fans of this show do not have any reference for you and I in superhero worlds yet. So most iconic costume of a superhero, in your opinion?
Oh, that's easy. Superman. Superman is the most iconic because no matter how much they think about it.
That's 100%.
Even with
the check.
Even though they change it in a little bit, but it's always the iconic blue. They may take away the red Speedo in some iterations.
Don't worry about it.
but at the same time, it's always a blue suit. It's always the red cape. It's always the S, regardless of what we think the S stands for. It's that, to me, that is the iconic, because you could say Batman, but Batman had a bunch of different suits. We think of the iconic black suit since 1989, but up to this, but no, that was the gray suit. That was the gray suit. But that's exactly it.
That was for Eric.
but that's exactly what it is. And then you can say, in my opinion, you can say that the other most iconic that even though it had a modern turn to it, the secondary iconic one would be Wonder Woman. Same thing, red, white, and blue, with gold, and that's, to me, that goes all the way back to when Linda Carter was playing Wonder Woman. You still have the red, white, and blue, and so even though they modernized it, it still stayed true to the original source material.
Correct.
That's
It's powerful as hell, by the way. It still looks great. Same thing with the Superman costume. I agree with you. So Wonder Woman, Superman, Batman for you?
I would say, well, when it comes to Batman, I mean, Batman again. Yeah, I guess Batman would be number 3, but we automatically associate Batman now with a black suit since 1989. And when he's had the gray suit, he's had a bunch of different armors, but they've always been black at this point.
Yeah. So per one of my favorite comedies of all time, which is Neighbors with Seth Rogen and Zac Efron. Who's your Batman? We're going to find out here really quick how old each of us are. Who's your Batman?
Who's my favorite Batman? Oh God, I would have to. Honestly, there has to be something that has to be said about Michael Keaton. I think Michael Keaton was a great Batman, but I'll go with
Batman,
yeah. And they even brought him back for that really shitty Flash movie. So it's like I feel bad for Michael Keaton. Exactly. I feel bad for Michael Keaton to have to put on the Batsuit again and be in that shitty ass movie. You've heard it here,
folks. They were
actually
talking about recently
several times.
They were honestly recently talking about, and this is in the new, I'll say DC universe continuity that started with the new Superman movie and whatnot. Actually doing a Batman Beyond version with Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne, older. That would be fun, I think.
If they did it right. But the problem is with DC though, is DC does not see, even though they have the opportunity, they don't fall under the Disney moniker where they can actually make their movies gritty and nasty. They can cuss, they can do all these things that you don't really get.
Those are all the things I loved about The Peacemaker with John Cena, man. That show was awesome.
Right, exactly. So you would think that you get some really good writers and you write a really good DC comic movie, and you can still take the formula from Marvel and make it immersive where all the stories intertwine with each other. You don't have to make a Justice League
now.
Right. But
it's going to be
but at the same time
to see where that goes.
Yeah, I mean it's just, but again, whereas Marvel now is starting to turn out a bunch of, recycled crap, they're trying very hard, whereas they had a formula that was working great. And now it's just like, again, it's the Disney machine. Let's churn out a bunch of crap and eventually something might happen.
My friend. It's 100%. You got cherry pie in music form, and now you got DC or MCU movies are just the same movie over and over again with new characters in it. So we'll see what happens on that whole thing. So I'm hoping that the new Captain America movie can be a little bit different, and we'll see.
Yeah.
But on that note, so let me give you my iconic ones, and I'm going to go completely the other end here because obviously we were just talking about mostly DC guys. So I'm going to go Marvel for a second here. The yellow Wolverine costume, in my opinion, is one of the top superhero costumes that you can have. And it was so nice to finally see it on screen with Hugh Jackman in the Deadpool Wolverine movie. Not to mention that was just a fun pairing with the two of them anyway. So if that's where the MCU is going, maybe we're going to get something better. Then I will just say, since the day one, the way it was drawn, Stan Lee's Spider-Man. That has been an iconic suit. The fact that you have the red, the blue, the little, spider webs all around it. And then they eventually got into the comic books where he had that almost like flying squirrel looking thing where he had the webs between his arms and his legs. So perfect stuff. That was one of those things to me that was always just stood out. And like I said, the X-Men with Wolverine was a great one. And then I would say for the modern generation, if you're going to talk the other iconic ones, there's a reason that people dress up like them and spend way too much time with their 3D printer doing this kind of thing. And that is Iron Man. I think that since the MCU's inception, Tony Stark and Iron Man are no longer a B comic anymore. They are in the A line with the X-Men and everybody. So
Yeah,
that would be my thoughts.
I agree.
So-
I agree with you, especially when it comes to Spider-Man. Spider-Man, even though they modernized it, they kept to the source material, and I think it absolutely 100% spot on. I'm right there with you with Spider-Man.
It always had that flavor. Even if you look at the Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and I'm forgetting the new kids. So looking at all three of their uniforms, Holland.
Tom
So,
Holland.
the three of them, and then having them on the same screen together in the last Spider-Man movie and No Way Home, it was really cool because it was just enough that you could see that continuity across all of them,
Yeah.
but it was really fun that you could see those little flavors, and even as they're flying around a million miles an hour around the screen, you could tell which one was which. It was just enough different that and you know, maybe it was just when I was growing up in high school and everything like that, seeing Spider-Man on the big screen for the first time with those big Oakley lenses that they made for the costume. It was wild to see that translate from the paper for the first time. And there's a reason that was one of the highest selling movies of all time, the first Spider-Man movie. And not to mention, could there have been a better villain with freaking William Dafoe playing Green Goblin?
He doesn't need makeup. I think I even said that he doesn't need makeup. The thing is that he plays such a great creepy person. It just in anything that he's in, he's the man. The man is. Yeah.
If you're talking about showing young acting students somebody at the peak performance of their game, is watching William Dafoe talk to himself in the mirror and go back and forth as Norman Osborn and the Green Goblin and being completely in sync. Like it was a bone-chilling thing to see on the screen to begin with, because you see that in the comic books or the animated TV shows back when anyways, all the time. But to see somebody act it that well continuously in that scene, because obviously it was something that could have been clipped together going back and forth, camera to camera, and it's him literally seeing him from behind walking toward the mirror, and the only thing you see is the reflection in the mirror of him acting basically back and forth on that whole thing. And it was wild to see that Skit's personality through his eyes on that one. So anyway, that took us to the near end of the show here, Tommy.
Yeah.
Is there anything you would like to get off your chest, talk about before we get off the air this evening?
Actually, there is one thing that I was recently, and I should say back last month, I had the opportunity to be on another podcast called Throwback Trivia Takedown with one of my friends who is from, obviously, the game show. And I played against somebody who was also on the game show. So if you can take it, it's actually on Spotify and all the other ways that we do our podcast. But look up Throwback Trivia Takedown with me and watch or listen to me basically suck really, really bad at trivia. In my defense, it was a Sunday afternoon, or not even a Sunday, it was a Sunday morning. And I believe we recorded that on the 29th of December, I believe. So yeah, and it's up on there now if you want to listen to it. Again, Craig mentioned me emceeing the cosplay contest at the Rochester Anime Fest, which we found out they're going to be doing another one in July. The end of July, they're going to be doing another one. So who knows? They may ask us to come back. Yep, we may come back to that. And I do want to go, and we'll talk offline about going to the Nickel City Comic-Con, because that one looks to be really, really good to
at a minimum, folks of the Rochester area, I just found out they are going to have another Village Gate toy show that we will 100% be at in March. So keep your eyes open for our Instagram account, because that is our favorite of all the social media at the moment, especially if you're living in the world of the US here and you're not one of my Canadian friends that listens to this show. TikTok might be bye-bye in a few days. I have no effing idea. We'll see what happens. Roll the dice.
So with that being said, I had a thought, and maybe
True.
you might want is maybe instead of just going to the toy show, maybe we get a table and we broadcast live.
We will have to find out how much that is, and I would definitely
Yes.
was thinking that same thing. Great minds think alike, my friend. We'll see what happens, but I gotta wander around. I gotta have fun.
Oh well, we can still do that. We can still do that, but I mean, it's just very similar to what we did at the Anime Fest. Is that we got people to sign up for the cosplay contest, but we still got a chance to walk
Somebody's
around.
gotta take my money for all this useless shit. Anyway, honestly,
but anyways,
probably about 25% of the stuff in this room has come from that toy show every year.
So before we end, we might as well start talking about what our upcoming shows are going to be, because we have at least two in the shoot. We have two in the shoot. So go ahead and let us know what we are looking at in the coming weeks there, Mr. Craig Borden.
Yep. So next week, I actually am going to have two of my friends, Elijah and Will Cole, are going to come on this show next week, and they're going to talk to us and explain, especially to Tommy and I, as we got some serious homework to do for this topic. Is they are big fans and play the Magic the Gathering game. So they get together, they collect the cards, they play the game, they do everything revolving around that. So we're very interested to tap into their minds, learn a little bit for ourselves, and show the fan base to people that are greatly invested in that fandom. And that's the point of this show, is to interview people that have to be those experts on those topics that Tommy and I don't know. Hence the reason we had a good time at the Anime Fest the other day, and we're going to probably get some people on from that in the near future too. So Tommy, go right.
Yeah. So and then the following week on the 26th, we will have Tim from Trivia Chat, and we're going to do a game show centric episode that is all about basically game shows from well, I've been on one. That's my claim to fame. I've been on a game show. But we're going to talk about game shows. And the reason why we're going to have Tim from Trivia Chat is because Tim has actually been on multiple, and I'm talking not one, not two, not three, but I think he's up to 6 or 7 game shows that he has been on. And I mean, we're talking, he goes back to like Wheel of Fortune, I believe. He was on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire with Regis Philbin. I mean, we're talking, he's ran the gambit. So I consider him the foremost authority when it comes to being on a game show. And if you've ever had a desire or wanted to ever be on a game show, tune into that episode, because that he'll give you the tips inside of what people are looking for, and trust me, every time you see a game show, they're always asking for new contestants, especially if it's a game show that is out there, that has been around for a while and is very popular, like Press Your Luck. Not every game show is episodic like The Floor, but who knows? You can go out there. Speaking of which, did you even finish your for The Floor your application?
Unfortunately, I've been under the weather like yourself, but it is going to happen. I promise you.
All right.
So people of yourself and Gene yelling at me to do it, I'm going to do it. And just to be that person, I'm going to pull the link up right now and make sure it's on my splash screen here on my desktop.
There you go.
I said, the biggest problem was not filling out the form. It's that I had to make a video, and I'm trying to think of something clever.
Just use footage of
point.
But we have one more that we don't have it necessarily planned yet, but we are going to have another guest because of the Anime Fest. We the two cosplay experts that we have that we were with was Anastasia Cosplay, as well as This Is Paz. They will be on our show, and we are going to talk all things cosplay, because again, that is a huge fandom that people really tap into, especially when they go to these cons. Like the San Diego Comic-Con is like the magnum opus of all cons. But there are other cons out here that people just they put their their blood, sweat, and their tears into these costumes to make to support their fandom, and why not have great cosplayers who put forth the effort and come on our show and tell us everything that we need to know about good cosplay and how to cosplay.
Yep, and I actually have a meeting with our friends at the Yankee Clipper this week, so I'm going to get them on the show in the very near future too. So our friends from the Yankee Clipper, if you're here in Rochester, New York, baseball cards, sports cards in general, toys, all that kind of good stuff in the Village Gate, they are the ones that actually, before the father unfortunately passed away during the right after COVID period, they were the ones that organized the Village Gate Toy Show. So I look very forward to hearing what it was like growing up from the family with the toy show or a toy store being in the family, and how they're continuing to keep that thing going full steam ahead. So make sure you tune in, because we're going to have some very good fun over the next few weeks. So anything else?
That's it. That's all I got. Go Bills. Go Bills.
Go Bills. So thank you very much, everybody, for listening to TNC Random Fandom Podcast. We have had a wonderful time this evening talking all things literally random tonight. And we're going to continue to have some great shows, like I said, with Magic the Gathering and game shows over the next few weeks. Make sure you tune in on Sunday evenings, 7 o'clock Eastern time. We will be here live for you. If you happen to miss the pod, make sure you check out all the fun, wonderful things we have on social media. And make sure you get those likes, subscribes, follows in for anything on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. And we will be there for you. Cheers, and we hope you all have a great week.
Good night, everybody.